I am excited. If you are an engineer or a math teacher like Betsy, maybe this is your favorite book of the Bible, Numbers. All right? We are kicking off a new sermon series called Trusting God. It is going to take us all the way through up until Palm Sunday, so in the Lenten season. And today's text is Numbers chapter 11, verses 1 through 15, and verses 31 through 35. Numbers 11, 1 through 15, 31 through 35. So I hope you can join me in your Bibles today or just look on the screen. Numbers chapter 11. And the people complained in the hearing of the Lord about their misfortunes. And when the Lord heard it, his anger was kindled. And the fire of the Lord burned among them and consumed some outlying parts of the camp. Then the people cried out to Moses, and Moses prayed to the Lord, and the fire died down. So the name of that place was called Taberah, because the fire of the Lord burned among them. Now the rabble that was among them had a strong craving. And the people of Israel also wept again and said, "Oh, that we had meat to eat. We remember the fish we ate in Egypt that cost nothing, the cucumbers, the melons, the leeks, the onions, and the garlic. But now our strength is dried up, and there is nothing at all but this manna to look at." Now the manna was like coriander seed, and its appearance like that of bdellium. The people went about and gathered it and ground it in hand mills and beat it in mortars and boiled it in pots and made cakes of it. And the taste of it was like the taste of cakes baked with oil. When the dew fell upon the camp in the night, the manna fell with it. When Moses heard the people weeping throughout their clans, everyone at the door of his tent, and the anger of the Lord blazed hotly, and Moses was displeased. Moses said to the Lord, "Why have you dealt ill with your servant? And why have I not found favor in your sight that you lay the burden of all this people on me? Did I conceive all this people? Did I give them birth that you should say to me, 'Carry them in your bosom, and as a nurse carries a nursing child to the land that you swore to give their fathers? Where am I to get meat to give all this people? For they weep before me and say, 'Give us meat that we may eat.' I am not able to carry all this people alone, and the burden is too heavy for me. If you will treat me like this, kill me at once, if I find favor in your sight, that I may not see my wretchedness." I'm skipping down to verse 31. Then a wind from the Lord sprang up, and it brought quail from the sea and let them fall beside the camp, about a day's journey on this side and a day's journey on the other side around the camp, and about 2 cubits above the ground. And the people arose all that day and all night and all the next day and gathered the quail. Those who gathered least gathered 10 homers, and they spread them out for themselves all around the camp. While the meat was yet between their teeth, before it was consumed, the anger of the Lord was kindled against the people. And the Lord struck down the people with a very great plague. Therefore, the name of that place was called Kibroth Hattaavah, because there they buried the people who had the craving. From Kibroth Hattaavah, the people journeyed to Hazeroth, and they remained in Hazeroth. This is God's word. The title of our message today is, "Will God Provide or Not?" Will God provide or not? And 3 points, 3 things that are bared out in the text this morning, supporting that or pointing in that direction. It's number 1, our discontentment. Number 2, our self-sufficiency. And number 3, God's gracious judgment. Our discontentment, our self-sufficiency, God's gracious judgment. Will God provide or not? The wilderness. What is the wilderness? The wilderness is the place or the station where you have a need or a desire, and there is not an immediate way to resolve it. There's not an immediate solution. So wherever you are right now, if you're at home, you're not in the wilderness. That's not the wilderness. If you're sitting on your couch, that is not the wilderness. If you're sitting on your sofa and you say, man, I'm hungry, that's easily resolved. Just you go to the refrigerator, you go to the pantry, you get, whatever it is. Pick your, Twinkies to arugula, and wherever in between, right? You can resolve that. You have to go to the bathroom. Okay, you just get up and do it. But when you were in the wilderness, you have a need, you have a desire. There's not an immediate solution. It's like you're driving through western Pennsylvania or whatever state, and man, I'm running low on gas. And where's the next gas station? I don't see it. Or if you're driving and you've got kids in the back and somebody says, I gotta go potty. And you're like, I don't even see an exit. Oh no, how are we gonna resolve this? And okay, maybe you're saying, well, that's not that big of a deal. There's a ways to resolve that. Fine. But gas, I remember driving with some pastors, friends of mine from New York to D.C. We get in the rental car. I'm sitting in the back. Everybody's looking at their phones except for the driver. But he fails to look at the gas tank meter on the dashboard. And then the car's kind of sputters, and he veers off. He's like, oh, God, guys, we're running out of gas. And we're on the turnpike. You ever driven on one of those? There are exits, there's no exits for miles. That's a wilderness experience. I mean, it was New Jersey, but still. It's a wilderness experience. The wilderness is a place, you have a need, you have a desire, there's not an immediate way to resolve it. And we see God's people, they're in the wilderness. In the book of Numbers, they are spending their entire time in the wilderness. The thing about the wilderness is, as a Christian, we all are in a wilderness. Our whole life is a wilderness journey. And the thing about the wilderness is that it was not about that point in time. It was a passage to go to somewhere else. It was a passage to go to the promised land, to end up somewhere that was much better, where all the needs could be met. And we live in the wilderness experience as believers in this life. We're looking forward to our promised land, the new heavens and new earth, when we will meet our Lord. But when we go through the wilderness, there's lots of things that happen in our lives, in our hearts, that get exposed. And as we see in our passage today, the first thing that gets exposed, or one of the first things, at least in our human experience, but certainly the first here, is discontentment. Verses 1 through 3. So the first point, our discontentment. It says that the people complained in the hearing of the Lord about their misfortunes. If you just stop there, that's verse 1. That should strike us. Now, we are not starting our sermon series in Numbers chapter 1, because if we were, you would, oh gosh, that's tough preaching. It's all the clans and all, count this person and how many are here and there. You could read that. But if you look at Numbers chapters 1 through chapter 10, essentially the Israelites are doing everything that the Lord says. Moses is doing everything that the Lord says. Since they've been in the wilderness, they've been on Mount Sinai. They made it to Mount Sinai. They've been there. They erected a tabernacle. They have the presence of God. One of the trivia questions in our, as we were right before the service, was how did God lead them through the wilderness? The pillar of cloud by day, the fire by night. They had God with them. But then in verse 1, they're complaining about their misfortunes. Doesn't tell us what they thought they were having as a misfortune, but it does say how God felt about that. He burned with anger, and he put a fire on the outskirts of the camp. Whether it burned people or property, we don't know. But the fire was in the outskirts. The people cried at Moses. Moses intercedes, and the fire is abated. It's so much so, though, that this place is called Taberah. After the Hebrew word for fire, it's similar. And the passage there is to sort of give us a heads up. Okay, this is jarring. Everything had been going well. Even in chapter 10, they're talking about, Moses is talking about how God's going to be good to them. He's saying, in verse 29 of chapter 10, we're setting out for the place for which the Lord said, I will give it to you. Come with us, and we will do good to you. The Lord has promised good to Israel. They're talking about all the good stuff, but they complain. Then it moves to verse 4. They're in a different location, not far away, not time-wise, probably not a long time has elapsed. And it says that the rabble among them had a strong craving. Now, maybe your version, some say riff-raff. It's actually a word not used more than once in the Hebrew. But what most scholars believe is in the process of the Israelites, they left Israel. They left Egypt. They were slaves in Egypt, and they left in the process of their journey. They along the way, they picked up other folks from other nations. Some Egyptians, some maybe from other nations, and they lived on the outskirts of the camp. And probably this is a reference to that group of folks. The group of folks that maybe was not fully on board with worshiping Yahweh, they were there, they kind of enjoyed something about the experience, but not fully on board. And so they maybe were not fully on board with the fact that Yahweh is faithful, God is faithful. And so they had a strong craving. And the people of Israel wept. Different than the previous issue where everything kind of happened on the outskirts of the camp. Now it's entering into the fullness. All the people. The thing about discontentment is it's contagious. Have you ever been in a conversation where someone is expressing their discontent, and certainly you want to give space for people to say what is on their mind and heart. But if you're not careful, then it colors how you see the world. And sort of their issue becomes maybe a piece of your issue. Discontentment becomes contagious. And so the folks that were the rabble complain, and they have this desire. And now it says the people of Israel also wept. Oh, that we had meat to eat. We were talking here as our folks, the worship team and folks who are doing media earlier about things that we watch on TV or stream rather. When you're watching TV, when you have a show, you have a favorite show, and you watch a series, you typically see it through the eyes of the main character, right? The protagonist. You see the values system sort of through their eyes, and the justice of what is right or wrong through their eyes, and you have an affection or affinity towards that individual or group of folks. And when you read a text like this, that might be the reaction. Okay. Maybe this is okay. They want meat. I mean, they're in the wilderness. That's it. What's the big deal? Is that wrong? I would want meat. Unless you're a vegetarian or a vegan, you avoid this whole scene. But for them, they were like, no, we want meat. And then they go into this whole experience. Here is what our past was like. You remember that? You remember when? Remember when we were in Egypt? And we had fish to eat. I mean, they describe this very tasty Mediterranean cuisine. Fish, cucumbers, melons, leeks, onions, and garlic. I mean, that is a Mediterranean dish right there. And they say the fish, it was free. It cost us nothing. It was in abundance. You remember that? We had all of that back there. Yeah, we want some meat. And they say, now our strength is dried up. We're not strong anymore. We don't have that protein. And there's nothing at all but this manna to look at. The thing about manna is the text tells us the thing about manna. So they're saying manna, it's manna again. Every day. Manna comes. Every day it's manna again. But here's the thing about manna. Here's what the text tells us about manna. It says manna it appeared like bdellium. Bdellium was it's pretty, shorthand. It is good to look at. They're saying all we have to look at is this manna. All we have is this manna. to look at. It's actually good to look at. It appears like bdellium. The people went about and they gathered it. They ground it in hand mills. They beat it in mortars in verse 8. They boiled it in pots and made cakes of it. And the taste of it was like the taste of cakes baked with oil. What is the text saying? It's saying, there's actually multiple ways you could prepare the manna. You could ground it, you could beat it, and then boil it, and then you can make a cake with it. It's not just a one-trick pony. There's a variety of ways you can prepare it. But then what does it taste like? So in other words, it's not just the same. I remember when I was a freshman at Duke, and Duke liked to, I guess, be known for a lot of things, and it was somehow ranked in the top 10 in food. I don't know if that's a real ranking among colleges and universities. And we every day we would have, every day it was like in the food place for the freshmen, like there's chicken one day, on the weekend there's like, Belgian waffles. One day is like pasta, another day there's, some other thing. And it's like you go through that and every day, and then so I could actually start telling the day of the week by what food was present in the eatery. Didn't even have to look at the calendar. Oh, it's like, okay, it's Wednesday. Look, there's pasta. And over time, it's like, oh, pasta again? But the text is saying, you know what? Actually, there's variation in the manna. But then thirdly, it tastes like cakes baked with oil. My family and I, we have the Joy of Cooking text or cookbook. Well, it feels like a textbook. It's about this thick. And it has a recipe for olive oil cake. Have you ever had olive oil cake? It actually is good. So if we were tempted to sympathize with the people who are clamoring for meat, the text is saying, no. That's not what it was like. It's not like that. The manna was good to look at. It was variable, and it tasted good, yet they were discontent. And this is just, it's a picture of the human heart. Like, no matter the circumstance, we can be discontent. I remember I was, I guess I had just graduated college, and I was on a missions trip to Hawaii. It's rough. So, and so we were on this, and there was a wedding. We were going to a wedding. We were on a missions trip, and we were doing mission stuff. We were doing like evangelism on the campuses there. But I remember our team. We kind of got all stressed out. We're getting into a disagreement about stuff. If you've ever been on a missions trip, it brings up a lot of things, a lot of issues and people. You have a lot of interpersonal conflict in missions trips. But then it's like after you reflect and you leave, you're like, what were we so stressed out about? We were in Hawaii on a missions trip. How did we even like get that past folks who gave? Like, okay, yeah, we're going on a missions trip to Hawaii. Would you please give? We were the human heart. We can be in okay circumstances. We'll find something to critique or criticize. We have a proclivity towards discontentment. And that's what happens when we go through a wilderness season. But if we to think about it just slightly further, that strong craving in the original language, it's actually talking about a lust or greed, or there's something underneath that discontentment. We'll get to that here in a moment. But point number 2, our self-sufficiency. So the wilderness, it shows, or what comes to the surface is discontentment, but also self-sufficiency. And here's what I mean. Verse 10 through 15, we see Moses' reaction to the people's reaction. Verse 10 is a very interesting, this very visceral verse. Moses heard the people weeping throughout their clans, everyone at the door of his tent. So he hears their weeping. It's giving us this sort of sensational view of emotions. He hears their weeping, everyone at the door of his tent. And the anger of the Lord blazed hotly. If you look literally, it's like the nose of the Lord was burning hot with anger. So Moses is hearing their discontent. The face of the Lord is burning hotly, and Moses was displeased. And again, if you look at the original, it's evil in his eyes, is what it literally means. It's evil in his eyes. He hears the weeping of the people. The Lord's face is burning hot with anger, obviously an anthropomorphism. Moses, it's evil in his eyes. Everybody's mad. Everybody's mad. The people are mad. Moses is mad. The Lord is mad. I remember traveling from North Carolina to New York on I-95. Lots of traffic, lots of backup. And in this particular trip, there was so many accidents, so many slowdowns. And it's like at one point, our whole car, my whole family, everybody's crying. Everybody's crying. The kids are crying. Becca's crying. I'm mad. Everybody's mad in this particular situation. But then here's what Moses says. It says that it was evil in Moses' eyes. What was evil? Is it the people? Is it the Lord? Like the situation? What is he talking about? He tells us in verse 11. Moses said to the Lord, "Why have you dealt ill with your servant?" Again, it's illuminated in the original language. Dealt ill. Basically, literally, he's saying, "Why have you done evil to me?" So the thing that was evil in Moses' eyes, God, you did this. And he says it even further. If you look at the questions, Moses says, "Why have I not found favor in your sight? You laid this burden on me, these people. Did I give birth to them? Are they my responsibility, Lord? Am I supposed to carry them to the promised land? And by the way, where am I supposed to get meat for all these people?" In verse 13. "They keep coming to me. They're weeping. 'Give us meat that we may eat.'" Verse 14. "I'm not able to carry all these people alone. The burden is too heavy." In fact, Moses says, "Listen, Lord, if you're going to treat me like this, just kill me. I don't want to see my own wretchedness." What's happening here is for the folks, it started with the rabble or the riffraff, and they're discontent. They have this strong craving, and then it's the people. They're weeping. "Oh, man, it was so good back in Israel." By the way, they were slaves back in Israel. It was not so good, and it wasn't free fish. They were slaves. They had a nostalgia over their past, but they underplay and undervalue their present provision. By the way, manna in Psalm 78, it says that manna is the bread, it's the bread of angels. It's angel food cake. How can you complain about that? But Moses, he's not simply discontent. He's like, what rises to the top for him is this sense of self-sufficiency. Notice how in all of these questions, it's all about him. "Why are you doing this to me, Lord? How am I supposed to carry them? How am I supposed to provide for them? How can I give meat? Just kill me, Lord. You know, why haven't I found favor in your sight?" By the way, this is the same Moses in Exodus 34 who says, "Lord, if I found favor, then show me your glory." And God says, "Okay, I will show you myself. You wait here. I'm going to show you my backside because you can't see my face. You won't survive." Moses has seen God. That is favor upon favor. But now he's, "Lord, why haven't I found favor with you? Why do I have this burden?" One commentator notes that no less than 20 times in the Hebrew does Moses refer to himself in these 5 verses. Have you ever been in that place, Lord? Or maybe you said it to yourself, maybe you said it to the Lord, maybe you said it to someone else. How am I supposed to do all of this? How am I supposed to handle that? How am I supposed to deal with this? I can't take this anymore. I don't want to deal with this anymore. We've all been there. What the wilderness does is it brings you to a place where you see you're kind of relying on your self-sufficiency to get through. And you realize because there's a need, because there is a desire that doesn't have an immediate solution for it, you realize you can't be self-sufficient anymore. That's what the wilderness does. And the thing is, maybe for you, not only is this life a wilderness, we're heading into the promised land, and we're like this people who has a tendency to be discontent, even though God is with us. He's present with us when we come together, even over Zoom. He's with us. Or maybe you feel this sense of, self-sufficiency as you go through this life, and am I going to trust God, or am I going to trust in my own ability? But some of the types of wilderness you might be experiencing, maybe you're in a relational wilderness. Maybe you recently moved, or you changed jobs, or you did something, and now you're in a new environment, and like, where are my friends? Or you've been in the church, and you've had friends leave over the years. Where are my friends? You're in a relational wilderness. Maybe you're single. Maybe you're like, man, I thought I would be married by now. What's going on? You're in a relational wilderness. Or maybe in your career, maybe in your job, it's not going anywhere. Or you thought you were on a certain track, and you realize you're not on that inner circle of decision-making and power that you thought you were. Or, it's just things aren't working out for you, and you're in a career wilderness. Maybe you're in a financial wilderness. It's like the bills and all the needs and what's coming in, it's kind of like they're right level. There's no margin. Or maybe it's not even, maybe it doesn't even add up at the end of the month. Maybe as a student, you're in an academic wilderness. You're like, man, I entered into this program, and I thought this is what I wanted to do, but now I'm not really sure. Is this what I'm supposed to be doing? Maybe you're in a spiritual wilderness, that you're just in either a dry season, you go to the Word, you do your disciplines, but God, where are you? I don't sense you. Or maybe you're walking through a season of doubt. God, are you really there? Are you even really real? Or you're just in your life, you're like, God, where are you? Do you see what's going on? We're in a pandemic. There's all this stuff happening. Where are you? And what the scripture is encouraging us today is, don't give in to discontentment. Don't give in to self-sufficiency. Trust in the Lord. The last point here, God's gracious judgment. God's gracious judgment. God actually gives them what they ask for. You see this wind in verse 31. The Lord, it says that the wind brings the Lord brings a wind, and the quail, they show up and they start falling around near the camp about a day's journey away. And it says that the least gathered 10 homers. Now, I was thinking about that. Like, okay, that would be good for a batting lineup for the least one to get 10 homers, okay? So I was thinking about that for the Yankees. Maybe this season, the least one gets 10 homers. But we're not talking about baseball. We're talking about, it's maybe 50 gallons of quail, something around 55 gallons of quail everybody gets. So even though they don't really ask the Lord nicely, and even though Moses doesn't really intercede for them, he's talking about himself, God gives it to them anyways. But then here's what happened. Here's the bizarre twist, if you will. While the meat, verse 33, was in their teeth, before it was consumed, the angel of the Lord kindled and struck the people down. And so much so, they named the place Kibroth Hattaavah, which is the graves of the craving, or the graves of the greedy. Underneath that discontentment, there was a deeper desire. There was, God, you're not a good enough provider. I want something else. I've been reading through the children's version of Pilgrim's Progress with Maddie and Solomon for bedtime this week, and really, we all look forward to it. And if you've read Pilgrim's Progress or seen, animated version or what have you, or any version of it, Christian is supposed to be on the straight and narrow. But along the way, there's other paths. There's folks saying, don't go this way, it's too hard. Don't go the straight and narrow way, it's too hard work turning back. And there's other paths. What's going on here with the text? Why is God striking them down? It's because the people in their hearts, they say, you know what? We don't like this path. We don't like the path where God leads us. We want a different path. We're choosing a different way. But It's God's gracious judgment because, well, one, this is written for us as a warning. It's written for us as an instruction. But it's also just to highlight the fact that grumbling, that discontentment, that greed, that self-sufficiency, those are actually all sins. And they warrant God's judgment. God is just in his judgment of those sins. But as Christians, we don't walk away from this text feeling completely defeated and just, man, I've been discontent, I've been self-sufficient, I've been greedy, I've been all these things. Because, as it says in the story about the Pilgrim's Progress, one day the Christian is encouraged. You know what? The king, he sent his own son. He became a pilgrim. He entered into Jesus Christ. He entered the wilderness of this world. He entered the actual wilderness, as it's recorded in Matthew chapter 4, Luke chapter 4, and he didn't give in to discontentment. He didn't give in to self-sufficiency. He didn't give in to greed. He said, after 40 days of fasting and given the opportunity to turn stone into bread by Satan, he says, man doesn't live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from God's mouth. And so you have one who's walked through the wilderness without sin. One to look to for forgiveness, to receive goodness, the goodness of God and the mercy of God, but also to receive the grace of God to walk through whatever wilderness you are going through right now. So, brothers and sisters and friends, we all are going through a wilderness. The whole world is going through a wilderness. The whole country. I mean, we're in a pandemic. There's so many things. There's so many ways where there's a wilderness experience. And Scripture encourages us. The Word of God is encouraging you. Don't be discontent. Don't give in. Don't give in to greed. Don't give in to, I just want that. I'm not happy with what I have. Focus on the things God has been faithful with you about. What has he done? How has he been faithful? Celebrate that. Remind yourself of that. It may mean throughout the day, every day, but remind yourself of his goodness. And instead of giving into self-sufficiency, say, God, you know what? Moses should have said, God, you're going to provide the meat. Look at what you've done so far for us. You're going to provide a way. You're going to deal with this. And instead of feeling, how am I going to get through? How can I deal with it? You say, Lord, you're going to get me through. You're going to help me. You're going to provide because you're faithful. You're good, and I can trust you. Let's pray. Father, thank you for our time in your word. I pray, Lord, that we would continue to get deeper and deeper in our hearts to trust you. We thank you that you are good. We thank you for your forgiveness. In Jesus' name, amen.